Hello good people, welcome to Keep Left, your car guide to all things cars and all things automotive. As always, my name is Kev, the host who knows most about cars, and today I'll be featuring one of Britain's most esteemed exports, the Land Rover, and to be more precise, the Land Rover Discovery. What I have today is the Land Rover Discovery 4. Now, it is denoted by LR4, but in actual sense, this is the second generation of the Discovery family, with the first generation featuring the boxier models of this particular car, and the second generation featured the Land Rover 3, and this, the Land Rover 4. Basically, the Land Rover 2 and the Land Rover 4 are basically facelifts of the Land Rover 1 and the Land Rover 3. Now, if you look at it, it maintains design cues from the Land Rover Discovery 3. But there are some subtle differences for the keen-eyed viewer who can notice these differences. Basically, the power plant is different, the drivetrain is similar, but employs a different mode of terrain response. This particular model is something that looks good and something that appeals a lot to the affluent client who might be wanting something luxurious. And to be precise, when Land Rover were coming up with the Discovery, they wanted something that can be a go-between the Land Rover Defender, which is a rough and ready client in terms of 4x4 cars, and the Land Rover Range Rover, which is more suited to the luxurious client who might be wanting something that is more posh and suited to looking good. So this basically comes in between, and it employs both sides of the two worlds, which means this particular model is very capable in terms of off-road capability, and for the client who wants something that will turn heads, this is a very good candidate.
Do you even know love? Hey, do you even know love?
So the interior of the Land Rover Discovery 4 features a very nice leather finish on the dashboard, with a dark, almost grayish leather, complemented by the beige finish. At times you can feel that this is plasticky in terms of how it's finished and what the car is going for, but it's okay because if you look at the chrome finish in terms of the air vents, they complement the color that the car has taken, the almost grayish, dark brownish, and the tan. That is nice of that. Also, if you look at the seats are leather, standard from the factory. This is not something that has been knit as an aftermarket thought. This comes standard with leather. And the one thing that I noticed about this car's seats is the seats on this are not a manual. So this one you have to pull for you to move the seat forwards and backwards. Not all Land Rover Discovery 4s have manually movable seats. Some other models of this, like the Landmark model, will feature electronically movable seats, which is not something that will make you write off the car. It's nice to have, but it's something that you can always live without. The story is the same at the back. There is more than enough room in this car. This car is big enough. Remember, the whole idea for the Land Rover Discovery was to cater for the lifestyle-oriented clients. And if you think about lifestyle, you have to think about family. And when you think about family, you have to think about space. And for that fact, as opposed with the car having being a 7-seater, it has more than enough room. So if you come at the back, and I'll just use myself as a test dummy, the space is enough. And the fact that this car is a four-wheel drive, you'll expect a very huge transmission tunnel. There is no transmission tunnel for this because the car has a good enough lift. So leather at the back. Now, if you follow me to the boot area, the story is the same. So now, the boot of the Land Rover Discovery features double opening doors. With the first one, you just press a button here and it opens up. Yes, and the second one, you have to press this button here, which is electronic. The latch is released and you open. You see, now this car, we won't even talk about the size. The size of this car is big enough. What I want to just make you note is the extra seats that are in this car. So this one you just pull and it goes back. So in order to activate these seats, you just pull this lever here. To activate the seats, you just pull this lever here and then the seat comes up. And you find the same with the next seat. You just pull this lever here, there, and the seat just pull. Needs some energy, and the seat comes up. And just like that, this car is converted into a 7-seater with enough space. These seats will not be opportune for grown-ups, probably for kids, because if I was to sit there, I would fit, but not for a long journey. Yep. So, you know what? I take back my words. These rear activated seats actually have more than enough space. You see, from where I'm seated, my knees barely get to the rear seats, and the sitting position is good enough. I can tell this is somewhere you can sit and probably even go for a long journey. So comfortably seated, this car can seat 7 people, and that is just the size of a normal family. And that's why I was saying when Discovery was designing this car, their biggest target was lifestyle oriented kind of clients with families, clients who want to go for barbecues, clients who want to go for picnics, camping sites. Yeah, so this will very well seat 7 people comfortably, and that's a nice thing to have. The bottom opening tailgate is very strong, and it's somewhere where you can sit. And equally, it is quite opportune if probably you are carrying shopping bags, and let me say, and you have to go up. This is something that if you press, you can open and probably just put your shopping bag. So it is a well thought of thing. The other thing that is unique with this particular model is that the suspension, this car doesn't come with the traditional spring suspension. It comes with bags. Yes, it has airbags that soon enough I'll show you how they are controlled inside the car with the terrain response. So if you just follow me, if you look down here, those are the bags. Something that makes the ride quality of this car to become something different. Yeah, I hope you can see that. So under the bonnet of the LR4, for this particular model, it has a 3-liter diesel engine with twin turbos. Remember, these are the design cues that I was talking about earlier on. The LR3, the Land Rover Discovery 3, had a 2.7-liter diesel engine. There are other derivatives of the Land Rover Discovery 4. For example, it also has a 3-liter petrol engine and a 5-liter V8 petrol engine. We also have a 2.7-liter diesel engine, but this is the most common one, and this is the one that people really like because of its economy and power that it produces in terms of the drivability. In terms of the drivetrain, the Land Rover Discoveries come with 3 derivatives of the gearboxes, with a 6-speed manual, a 6-speed automatic, and this one an 8-speed automatic gearbox. Simple as that. And as always, the drivetrain of the Land Rover Discovery is something that has been tried and tested. It is one of the best in the world. So at this moment, I think it's best to take it for a drive and put my hypothesis to the test. The interior of the Land Rover Discovery 4, the LR4, features a very luxurious interior. This is an interior fit for a king. This is a place where anyone who wants to feel important can sit. And by just looking around the car, you can tell that this is a well thought of interior. Why do I say that? The first thing is the steering. For such a huge car, you think that the steering of this car would be something very big. but in actual sense, this is a very nice size in terms of the drivability of the car. This is a nice size of a steering to have, and the steering is complemented by the fact that it has a lot of steering wheel controls to control your radio, to control also the phone. It has a pickup and a cut phone. It is also voice activated, and this is able to take you into the next level in terms of drivability of the car. Remember, some of the things that distract drivers are such things: you having to reach out to pick your phone, or having to reach out to turn on the radio or reduce the volume. And as that, this is well thought out. The steering controls. The steering equally has some paddle shifters to help you and for the more performance inclined clients, but you will rarely use this, but it's a good to have. It has a key fob, so it's keyless entry, and as such it's push to start. So do that, press on the brake, just hold, and the car starts. For a diesel engine, this car is very smooth in terms of how the engine rumbles. Yeah, so the gearbox, this is what I was telling you about the 8-speed. This is an 8-speed automatic gearbox, and the way to tell the difference between an 8-speed and a 6-speed auto gearbox is that the 6-speed gearbox in the Land Rover Discovery 4 will come with an actual lever for changing the different gears, but for the 8-speed it comes with this dial, the knob, which is quite opportune and looks nice. It is a design cue that we'll mostly see in Jaguars, but the two companies are integrated. So now for the drive, equally another design cue that is important to note is that this doesn't have the traditional handbrake that you lift. This is an electronic parking brake, so you just press down to release, and then you can start off. So some of the things that I can note and well off is that the power steering in this car is very nice, because when I hold on to the steering, you can tell it's actually light. It's not heavy in commensurate to the size of the car. It's actually light, and it has quick response, in the sense that if you just turn, the car turns. You just turn. Yeah, it doesn't have a slack in between, which is quite nice considering the car. It's quite a large car. So some of the things that Land Rover will pride themselves in terms of their brands, and especially the Discovery model, is their 4-wheel drive package. This car comes with a newer terrain response from the Land Rover 3, and as such, it has different buttons to denote different settings and different altitudes in terms of the drivetrain of this car. So the terrain response for the Land Rover is set up very well. So much easy that anyone, you don't have to be very well oriented in terms of cars for you to understand this, and there are settings that will help you to drive this car in different conditions. For example, the first setting will denote snow. The second one, forest driving conditions, where probably there might be murky leaves and mud. The third one is for desert conditions, which means loose sand, and the gearbox is able to adapt to that. Finally, it is on an incline or on a sideways incline, which is there. Equally, this car is able to raise itself up and down. This is possible because of the suspension that it has, which is it has airbags for suspensions, and as such, there is a button to lift and a button to lower it. Equally, the car comes with heated seats. There are buttons for the same here. This is a button for the drivers and the co-drivers heated seats. It has dual zone climate control with the two knobs. Yes, it has a classical touch in terms of the clock. The clock is the analog type, which just gives you a note of where Land Rover came from. And yes, it's a nice cue. This car comes also with a navigation system in its infotainment, which for this particular one, I noted it has Apple CarPlay, so you can just connect your phone and drive, and you have an easy time in terms of driving. When I take you back to the terrain response, the terrain response of this car is a marvel. And in fact, Land Rover have invested millions and millions in terms of research for this particular model, and even the Range Rovers. The terrain response for this is very good. And the sad part about all this is that, considering the clientele that will be buying this car, I don't think there will be any moment where the owner of this car will be forced to engage the different terrain response conditions that this car has. This car, don't get me wrong, is impeccable in terms of four-wheel drive driving, but if anything, most of what this car will see in terms of different terrains will be tarmac conditions, and that's what makes me sad, in the sense that what you'll see is such driving conditions, road after road after road. But in the event that you get to such conditions, I'm sure the terrain response will come in handy. But I doubt if you'll get to a point where this car, you have to activate those conditions. The second reason is because, considering the price of this car, I don't think anyone is going to risk this car by putting it to such conditions. Yes, the car will come out on the other side the better of the conditions, but considering the price of this car, the prices of this car, the Discovery 4, will range between $50,000 to $60,000, and in Kenya shillings, that will be anything between 4.5 million to 6.5 million Kenya shillings. That is a hefty fee for you to go throwing around the car in muddy conditions and sand conditions, just to test the terrain response. But it's a good to have, and Land Rover have invested enough to ensure that when you're in this car, you are sorted out in terms of four-wheel drive conditions. So the other thing about the power in this car is enough. This car is with the 3-liter twin turbo engine. It produces 252 horsepower, but that's not the biggest part about this car. This car has the torque that this car has is what makes it what it is. And because if you think about it, under low revs, this car is able to do high speeds, and most diesel cars don't rev to 7,000 and above. They will do probably 6,000, and that's, you'll be pushing it to the upper limits of the car's rev counter. But at 1,500 revolutions, this car has enough power, and that's where the two turbos come in, because one is preset to deal with low accelerating conditions, and the second turbo comes in on upper accelerating conditions. For example, if I was to put my foot down on this the pedal for the accelerator, sorry, if I was to put the accelerator down, this car will pick up speed with very minimal, you can see, with very minimal turbo lag. And just like that, we're almost getting to traffic. So this car, with the sheer size of the car, it has enough power to deal with the size of the car, which is good. And this is because of the engine and gearbox package. The 8-speed transmission of this car ensures that you do not feel the gear changes. The gear changes are instant and within good regions, so you don't end up feeling like you've overdriven a gear. You actually don't tell when the gear changes, which is quite nice, and it's something that, for someone who's keen, you might actually feel a nudge when a gear goes up or coming down, but for the normal-eyed person, you will not feel this. For someone who's in tune with cars, you might tell there's a nudge. But essentially, Land Rover intended not to have any interferences or you sensing that there's a gear change, and that's the beauty of the 8-speed gearbox. So what are some of the drawbacks that the Land Rover Discovery 4 has? If you've been keen on the review, some of the things that you've noted is this car has so many electronic functioning modes that they can be an actual failure point. For example, the handbrake for this car is an electronic one. That is prone to failure. The airmatic suspension for this one, the airbags in this, will fail from time to time because they are under constant strain, and equally they work overtime to keep the car level, to keep the car in situations that the onboard computer is dictating. Equally, the timing belt for this engine. Now, does this mean that this is a car that you should not buy? No, it just means that you need to have these ones checked more often than not. When you're buying this car, ensure that you confirm that the timing belt has been done. Make sure that the airmatic suspension has been checked. And equally, you can just replace some of the things that are constant failure points. And with that, that brings us to the end of the review of the Land Rover Discovery 4. Thank you so much for sitting through this review. And if you've liked the review of the Land Rover Discovery 4, give it a thumbs up. And until next time, it is peace.